They said I'd embarrass them. They whispered behind my back, laughed at my clothes, my voice, even the way I walked. But when the $15 million charity gala came, they did something I'll never forget. They replaced me with my sister. I grew up in a family where appearances meant everything. It wasn't about kindness or love or even respect. It was about how polished you looked, how perfect you acted, and how much attention you could steal in a room full of rich people. My parents weren't billionaires, but they knew how to play the game. They had rich friends, business contacts, and loved rubbing shoulders with anyone who had power. Me? I was always the odd one out. I wasn't loud, I wasn't glamorous, and I wasn't obsessed with showing off. I liked books, quiet walks, and people who actually listened instead of pretending. My younger sister, Lily, was the opposite. She had the charm, the fake smile, and the hunger to be admired. Everyone adored her. Everyone compared me to her. "You're too plain," my mother would say, fixing Lily's hair while ignoring me. "You need to learn to carry yourself," my father added, usually while pointing out how Lily always stood straight, smiled wide, and owned every room. It hurt. Of course it hurt. But I learned to live in my small corner, invisible most of the time. Then came the gala. It wasn't just any party. It was the annual Starlight Charity Gala. Tickets were worth more than most people's yearly salaries. Politicians, celebrities, business tycoons, everyone who mattered would be there. And for the first time, our family was invited. My parents were buzzing with excitement. My father spent weeks getting his tuxedo tailored. My mother went on endless shopping sprees for the perfect gown. Lily had fittings, makeup trials, and even media coaching to make sure she looked flawless. I thought I was going too. After all, I was part of the family. I bought a modest dress with the little savings I had from my part-time job. It wasn't designer, but it was elegant. I practiced my hair in front of the mirror, even though I knew my mother wouldn't care. Deep inside, I wanted just once to be included. The night before the gala, I laid out my dress carefully. It wasn't sparkly, it wasn't expensive, but it was mine. I felt nervous but excited. For once, maybe I'd stand next to my family and not feel invisible. But then, I overheard them. I was walking past the living room when I heard my mother's voice, sharp and annoyed. "She'll embarrass us, Mark. You know how awkward she is. What if she says something stupid? What if she dresses wrong? People will talk." My heart froze. Then Lily's voice chimed in, dripping with sweetness but cutting like a knife. "Don't worry, Mom. I can handle it. I'll take her spot. Nobody will even notice she's missing." My father sighed. "You're right. We can't risk it. This is important. Our image matters." And just like that, like I was a piece of furniture, like I didn't exist, they erased me. The next morning, I came down dressed and ready. My dress wasn't fancy, but I thought I looked okay. My mom barely glanced at me before saying, "You're not coming." The word stabbed me. "What do you mean I'm not coming?" I thought. My father interrupted. "It's not personal. It's just the gala is high profile. You wouldn't fit in. Lily will represent the family with us. You'll stay home." I felt my throat close. But I'm part of the family too. My mom gave me that look, the one that made me feel like I was dirt. "You'll thank us one day. We're saving you from humiliation." I couldn't even reply. Lily walked down the stairs just then, wearing a gown that shimmered under the lights. She smiled at me, that smug little smirk that told me she had won again. And then they left. The house went quiet. My dress hung on me like a cruel joke. Tears blurred my vision as I stood there, abandoned. I wasn't worth the risk, wasn't worth standing beside them, wasn't worth even being seen. That night, while they laughed and posed for photos at the $15 million charity gala, I sat alone in my room. My phone buzzed with updates, pictures of my sister shaking hands with celebrities, my parents smiling proudly, articles calling Lily the rising star of the evening. I stared at those pictures until my eyes burned. And somewhere between the anger, the hurt, and the humiliation, something inside me shifted. They thought I was weak. They thought I was invisible. They thought they could erase me. But they were wrong. Because I was done being their shadow. I didn't know how yet, but I promised myself I'd make them regret replacing me. And the first step of my plan started with a single phone call. The phone call wasn't to a friend. I didn't have many of those, not the kind who could help me here. It wasn't even to a relative. No, I called someone my family would never expect. Mr. Daniels, my old literature professor from college. He wasn't rich. He wasn't glamorous. But he had something my family didn't: connections in the nonprofit world. Real connections. Not the fake, polished kind that cared only about photographs and champagne. "Hello," his warm, gravelly voice came through the line. "Professor Daniels, it's me. Claire." "Claire. What a surprise. How have you been?" I hesitated, swallowing down the shame that burned in my chest. "Not great. I need advice. Maybe more than advice." He was silent for a moment, sensing the weight in my tone. "I'm listening." And so I told him everything. How my family had excluded me. How they thought I'd embarrass them. How my sister had replaced me at the gala. Every word came out shaky, but with each sentence I felt lighter, as if I was handing over the pain I had carried for too long. When I finished, Daniel sighed deeply. "Claire, I always knew you had more strength than you realized. They can't see it, but I can. And maybe it's time the world does too." That was the moment the idea was born. Instead of wallowing, I would build my own presence. Not in their world of fake smiles and champagne flutes, but in the world that mattered. Real charity. Real impact. Daniels helped me connect with an underground network of young philanthropists and activists, people who didn't have billions but who worked tirelessly to make actual change. They weren't in glossy magazines, but they were the ones feeding the hungry, providing education, fighting for the voiceless. And for the first time, I wasn't the plain sister. I wasn't the embarrassment. I was Claire. And I mattered. Weeks passed. While my parents and Lily kept bragging about the gala, posting pictures, and planning their next event, I was working behind the scenes. I started volunteering at food banks, attending small community fundraisers, speaking to groups about causes close to my heart. Daniels pushed me to take the microphone, even when my voice trembled. "You'll never grow if you stay silent," he reminded me. And slowly people listened. Not because I was glamorous, not because I sparkled in a gown, but because I was real. Then, something incredible happened. One evening, after a small fundraiser, a woman approached me. She was older, elegant but not flashy. She introduced herself as Margaret Hayes, head of a major foundation I'd only read about online. "I've been watching you," she said with a smile. "You speak from the heart. That's rare. Would you consider helping us organize an upcoming charity event?" My heart skipped. This wasn't just any event. It was the Global Hope fundraiser, a rival to the Starlight Gala, but with even higher stakes. Celebrities, CEOs, even world leaders attended. Unlike the gala my family worshipped, this one had substance. Billions were raised every year for humanitarian projects. And she wanted me. I said yes, of course. And for months, I poured every ounce of myself into that fundraiser. I coordinated logistics, worked with nonprofits, and even gave small speeches at press events. Slowly, my name started appearing in articles. Young philanthropist rising. Claire Matthews, the quiet voice making a loud difference. Meanwhile, my family didn't notice. They were too busy basking in the afterglow of Lily's so-called success. She was invited to fashion shows, photographed at clubs, praised for her beauty. But beneath the surface, whispers began. People started saying Lily was shallow, self-absorbed, that she lacked depth. And me? I was gaining exactly what my family craved: respect. The night of the Global Hope fundraiser finally arrived. I wore a simple gown again, nothing flashy, but this time I wasn't invisible. Cameras flashed as I walked in. Journalists actually called my name. People shook my hand, not out of obligation, but out of genuine admiration. And then, I saw them. My parents. My sister. They hadn't known I would be here. They looked like deer caught in headlights as I stepped onto the stage to give my speech. I didn't look at them while I spoke. I looked at the audience, the people who mattered. I spoke about change, about hope, about how charity should be more than a photo opportunity. My voice didn't shake. It was clear, strong, and it carried. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. And from the corner of my eye, I saw my family pale. For the first time in my life, they weren't the stars of the evening. I was. And I wasn't done yet, because I had one more surprise prepared. As the applause faded, I invited a very special guest to join me on stage. Someone who would expose the truth about my family's obsession with image and everything they had done to erase me. The crowd quieted as I held the microphone again. My heart pounded, not from fear this time, but from anticipation. "Before we continue tonight," I said, smiling warmly, "I'd like to invite someone very important to me. Someone who taught me that true value isn't about appearances, but about integrity. I gestured toward the side of the stage. And out walked Professor Daniels. The room broke into polite applause, though most didn't know who he was. But that didn't matter. What mattered was what he carried with him, the truth. Daniels shook my hand, his eyes gleaming with pride. Then he turned to the crowd. "I've been an educator for over 30 years, he began. And I've seen many brilliant young people fade into the background because others failed to recognize their worth. Tonight, I want to share a story. I saw my family stiffen in the audience. My mother's jaw clenched. My father shifted uncomfortably. Lily crossed her arms, glaring at me like she wanted to set me on fire. Daniels continued, his voice steady. There was a young woman, bright and full of compassion, who was told all her life that she wasn't enough. She was compared, belittled, even erased from her own family's proudest moments. The room grew silent. Some people leaned forward. Others glanced at one another, whispering. But instead of breaking, Daniels said, she rose. She poured herself into service, into real charity, into helping those who cannot help themselves. And while some were busy chasing lights and cameras, she built something real. That young woman is Claire Matthews. And tonight, you all see her for who she truly is. The applause that followed was thunderous. Cameras flashed. People stood to clap. And in the middle of it all, my parents shrank in their seats, their faces crimson with shame. But I wasn't done yet. When the clapping quieted, I stepped forward. I wasn't planning to share this, I said softly, but sometimes the truth matters more than silence. I paused, letting the room hang on my words. When my family was invited to the $15 million Starlight Gala, I thought I would be part of it. I thought for once I belonged. But the night before, they made a choice. They told me I wasn't good enough, that I would embarrass them, and so they replaced me with my sister. Gasps rippled through the audience. A few cameras swiveled toward Lily, who was sinking deeper into her chair, her face tight with rage. They erased me, I continued. But that erasure gave me clarity. I realized I didn't want to be part of a world that values appearance over compassion. I wanted to create change. Real change. And that's why I stand here tonight. The applause this time was even louder, rising like thunder in the grand hall. I didn't need to say more. The message was clear. My family's obsession with status had been exposed, not with anger or insults, but with undeniable truth. For the rest of the evening, people swarmed me. Celebrities wanted photos. Donors wanted to meet me. Journalists begged for interviews. Margaret Hayes herself pulled me aside and said, "You've just made history tonight, Claire. People will be talking about this for years." And in the background, I caught glimpses of my parents trying and failing to save face. They smiled too wide, laughed too loud, but nobody was looking at them anymore. The spotlight they had craved so desperately was gone. It was on me. Later that night, as I left the fundraiser, Lily cornered me in the hallway. Her eyes blazed. "How dare you?" she spat. "You embarrassed us. You humiliated Mom and Dad in front of everyone." I looked at her calmly. "No, Lily. They humiliated themselves. I just told the truth." Her face twisted with fury. "You think you've won? You think anyone actually cares about you? You'll never be more than the boring sister who hides in the shadows." I smiled faintly. "Funny. From where I was standing tonight, the only shadow in the room was yours." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She stormed away, heels clicking furiously against the marble floor. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel erased. I felt powerful. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Because exposing them was satisfying, but my revenge wasn't complete. Not yet. The true blow, the one that would tear their perfect little image apart, was still waiting. And I was ready to deliver it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. My speech from the Global Hope fundraiser went viral. Clips of me speaking about compassion and truth spread across social media. Headlines read, "The sister they tried to hide, Claire Matthews steals the spotlight." For once, people weren't laughing at me. They admired me. They respected me. And my family? They were drowning. Business partners started pulling away from my father, whispering about how his values didn't align with their own. My mother's social circle shrank overnight. Women who once fought for her approval now avoided her. And Lily, she still posted glamorous photos online, but the comments beneath were brutal. People called her shallow, fake, even cruel. It wasn't enough. They had taken so much from me. My confidence. My place. My sense of worth. And while I had rebuilt myself, I wasn't going to let them walk away without consequence. So I began my final move. Through Margaret Hayes and Professor Daniels, I reached out to several media outlets. Not the trashy gossip ones, real, respected journalism. I told them everything. About how my family replaced me, how they valued status over love, how they wore masks of charity while caring only about appearances. They asked for proof. And I gave it. I had recordings. Remember that night I overheard them plotting to erase me from the gala? I had pressed record on my phone, almost without thinking, as if a part of me knew I'd need it one day. Their voices were clear. My mother saying I'd embarrass them. My father agreeing. Lily offering to replace me. When the article was published, it exploded. Charity family exposed. Matthews prioritize image over inclusion. Daughter replaced at $15 million gala. Sisters rise fueled by cruelty. The audio clip was everywhere. People heard their words raw and cold. My parents tried to deny it, but the truth was undeniable. Their perfect image shattered overnight. And me? I didn't need to deny or defend. The world already saw me for who I was. The calls came pouring in, organizations asking me to speak, universities inviting me to lead panels, charities begging me to partner with them. My calendar filled faster than I could handle. Meanwhile, my father's company lost investors. My mother stopped appearing at social events altogether. And Lily, she tried to spin her image, but every time she posted something, people reminded her of the recording. She wasn't a star anymore. She was a cautionary tale. One evening, weeks after the storm broke, my parents showed up at my apartment. They looked smaller, tired, defeated. "Claire," my father began, his voice weary, "we need to talk." I let them in. Not because I owed them, but because I wanted to hear what excuse they'd offer. My mother's eyes darted around the modest living room, as if it offended her. "You've ruined us," she said coldly. "Your little stunt destroyed our reputation. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I stared at her. "What I've done? You replaced me like I was disposable. You humiliated me. And now you're upset because the world finally sees you for what you are." My father's shoulders slumped. "We made mistakes. But we're still family. Surely we can repair this." I laughed softly. "Family? Family doesn't erase one of their own because they're afraid of embarrassment. Family doesn't measure love by status. You only cared about how I looked standing next to you. Not about me." They fell silent. Finally, Lily spoke. She had been quiet until then, standing by the window, arms folded. Her voice was sharp. "You think you're better than us now? You think being on stage makes you a hero? You'll slip, Claire. People will forget you. And when they do, you'll come crawling back." I met her eyes. Calm. Steady. "No, Lily. I'll never crawl back. Because I finally know who I am. And I don't need your approval to exist." For the first time, she looked uncertain. Like the ground beneath her feet wasn't steady anymore. They left that night without another word. And me? I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel the need to shout or prove anything. The revenge was complete. Not because I destroyed them, though I had, but because I had freed myself from them. The world now saw me. More importantly, I saw myself. The moral was simple. When people try to erase you, don't shrink. Don't beg. Build yourself so strong, so undeniable, that when you rise, their erasure only exposes their own emptiness. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. They tried to erase her, she became unstoppable. Their obsession with image destroyed them, her authenticity made her shine. Real worth isn't in status or appearances, it's in truth, integrity, and resilience. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and share. It really helps. And remember, there's always more to come.